All right, thanks for staying with us. Let's get things started as we get into the conversation already. I'm joined tonight by analysts from many parts of various parts of the country. Here in Lagos, in the mainland area of Lagos, I'm joined by a public affairs analyst, Chike Chudi. He joins us live tonight via Zoom. We are also joined tonight from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, by the CEO, Invest Africa Media Limited UK. He's also the immediate past General Secretary, National Association of Nigerian Communities in the UK. Plus, here in Lagos as well, a political analyst joins us as well, Murphy Badoni from the mainland area of Lagos, Secretary, Network for Promotion of Good Governance. He also joins us live on the program. And of course, from Yola, the Adamawa State capital, we are joined by a former special advisor to former governor of that state, Admiral Murtala Nyako, on electoral matters. Alhaji Usman Ibrahim Wakali joins us live on the program. Gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with Galaxy TV at this time. Yes, so perhaps we should begin the conversation here in Lagos, where Chike Chudi is standing by for us, public affairs analyst. Chike, I wonder what your immediate thoughts are about these controversies surrounding the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, with regards especially, or close reference rather, to the controversies over direct and indirect primaries.
I think the problem a lot of people have has to do with most of the political parties, is that they feel that they should be left alone to conduct their own primaries the way they see fit. Obviously, that it is not something that should be imposed on them. Perhaps again, there is good reason for that, because they understand their political party, and I think that to a very large extent, they should be in a position to decide how they want to go about running their political party, as long as it is done in such a way that is fair, that is seen to be fair. People have all kinds of arguments about the direct or indirect primaries for political parties. While some feel that some have advantages, others feel that others have disadvantages too. So it's, you look at it from both ways. But I think that yes, there's an attempt by the National Assembly to want to harmonize it so that there is a clear path that should be undertaken by the political parties. But as long as I know that there has been the issue of people talk about internal party democracy, and the fact that virtually all the parties, especially the two dominant parties, lack internal party democracies. INEC has talked about that, and that has generally been acknowledged. A situation where political parties have been hijacked by certain heavyweights. Of course, there is a deeper issue with that, because in the First Republic, we had a situation where members were, you could say, rightly say that the political parties, like the UPN, for instance, belongs to the people, because the people had a say in the ownership of the party, regardless of how much they were putting in those parties. So they had a say. But over time, especially from 1990, most of these parties have been hijacked by money bags. In most cases, people who have exploited the system and looted the system, and have used the proceeds also to, benefit their political interests within the structure of their political parties. So, whichever way you look at it, it is neither here nor there. I think the basic thing, and I think that the most important thing, is to have political parties, whichever mode of primaries they use, whichever system they use to run their primaries, it must be done in a way that respects party democracies. Internal party democracy, in a way that ensures free and fair elections at the primary level. And I think there's a general feeling, because don't forget that the people who decided on this are also politicians. Members of National Assembly are politicians. So perhaps they feel that the process has weighed heavily against people who do not have the means. And so perhaps this is one way of trying to, kind of, balance the scales. But it's not going to be that easy, because politicians, you can always trust them to try to manipulate any situation, no matter how wholesome that situation is, to manipulate it in a way that favors them.
Well, perhaps let's bring in Murphy into the conversation as well. Murphy, at least 12 former governors are currently serving as APC senators right now in the the National House of Assembly. I mean, one senator argued that, one of the senators argued that this will put an end to godfatherism. I wonder what your thoughts are. Yes, well, Murphy, the question is for you. Murphy Abadoni, the question is for you, political analyst. A senator, or some senators have argued that the mandate of direct primaries will put an end to godfatherism as long as Nigerian politics is concerned. I wonder what your thoughts are. All right. I'm not sure that Murphy can hear us. Perhaps let's cross over to Usman Ibrahim, who is in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. When we have Murphy back, his audio connection back, hopefully we can get him on board. Alhaji Usman in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. Perhaps you could also share with us what exactly your thoughts are about this whole drama for and against direct and indirect primaries. And do you think that this will put an end, the direct primaries mandate? Do you think it will put an end to godfatherism in our political terrain as we have in this part of the world?
Hello? Hello? Be as it may, the direct primary amendment as adopted by the National Assembly and now ready for presentation to the President for his assent, is, I believe, is the only legacy that both the Ninth National Assembly and the Presidency will leave behind to Nigerians in terms of re-energizing the political scene. Because the direct primary elections is not a new phenomenon as far as politics is concerned in Nigeria. It was done during the NRC SDP days, during the Babangida's transition. All nominations were conducted under direct primaries, including even party leadership at that time. And if you could remember, in 1991-92, there was that direct primary elections which produced the presidential aspirants of then there was a contest between Yaradua and others in the SDP, and Shinkafi and others in the NRC, which in the later transition of the Congress, IBB's leadership at that time cancelled the primaries and ordered for a fresh nomination exercise. And I believe the only problem we always have in terms of whether it is direct or indirect is the leadership of the party and the absence of proper monitoring by the Independent Electoral Commission, as it is now called. Fortunately, with the current amendment, I think the Act now provides not for a supervisory role, but a monitoring role by INEC. They are not just observers. INEC are not supposed to be just observers of the primary elections conducted by the political parties. They are going to be direct monitors of the primaries, which translates into if for any reason the parties decided to truncate and subvert the provision of what the direct primaries really intends, I think INEC has a very big role to play in terms of putting the right.
Yeah, so we will discuss the possible consequences and implications of all of this, especially for the APC, which I want to think you are a member of. Perhaps we should also bring in the CEO of Invest Africa Media Limited in the United Kingdom into the conversation. Kunle Aderemi, live for us from the ancient city of Ibadan in Oyo State. Thank you so much, Mr. Kunle, for agreeing to speak with Galaxy TV. Perhaps maybe you should come from the angle of Nigerians in the diaspora and how this affects them, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, because for some time now they have been clamoring for Nigerians in diaspora being involved in electing political office holders and all of that. But I wonder what your thoughts are as regards to this issue of the bill, as well as those in the diaspora, how they can also contribute or be part of the electoral system or process.
Right. Thank you very much, Kelly, for this opportunity. The electoral bill, the way we look at it from diaspora angle is we should be able to cast our votes, and that should be done without any fear or favor to anyone. In effect, it means Nigerians in diaspora should adequately be able to vote. And in doing this, it's a decision between the direct, indirect, which the bill which has been passed by the House in Nigeria here. However, for us there, is neither here nor there. All we're looking out for is let us be able to vote. The federal government finds that number, as said, investment into Nigeria by diaspora is something they sought. So if they're looking at it from that perspective, then we should be able to as well vote, have a say in determining who runs the country, who runs the states, who runs the local government as well. For us, it's got to be fair and fair. I think the only thing about it that has excited me so far is the electronic side of it, where you can release results electronically. That, to me, is stepping up to what we have in Europe, in America, where results are released like that and it's accepted. I don't know so much about the mechanics of how this will work in Nigeria yet, because I'm still studying the bill. I only started reading it about 2 days ago. But I would imagine that for members of the House of Rep and the Senate to have agreed to do this, they must have spoken with the National Communications Commission on how this can work and how effective this will be. And of course, there will be the legal binding side of things, that whatever is released, it's legally binding to states and everyone involved. That's my take on it for now.
We will stay with the e-transmission of and e-voting in just a moment, because one wonders what we saw play out with the Anambra governorship elections on November 6 and 9. One wonders if we take it to the larger scale in 2023 with the issues and malfunctioning of beavers, if Nigerians can, or if INEC can cope with the electronic voting on a larger scale. But perhaps let's just stay with other issues. As I want to think that we do have Murphy Abadoni back with us, live from the mainland area here in Lagos. He is a political analyst. Well, Murphy, I wonder what your thoughts are about these controversies surrounding the direct primaries mandate and this disquiet sort of between governors and members of the National Assembly.
Hello.
Yes, Murphy, I think we can hear you now. Go ahead,
Hello.
please, with your thoughts.
Yes, can you hear me now?
All right, so
can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, so we can hear you. The question is, what's your perspective and insights and views about the drama, the disquiet, the rift, the widening rift between governors and members of the National Assembly as regards to this issue of direct primaries mandate? And do you think that it will put an end to godfatherism in the political terrain as we have in this part of the world?
Thank you very much. Good evening and good evening, viewers. I think like we all know, democracy is a process, and I'm one of those that have always explained to people that we are in a learning process, and we are actually growing by the day as far as democratic tendencies are concerned. And I personally strongly believe that the direct primaries, if eventually being assented to by the president, will be a welcome development. Because first of all, that will mean that power will be shifted to the ordinary people on the streets, whom ordinarily before now do not have the opportunity to actually choose their leaders. And for those that have followed me seriously in different forums, I've always said that until we all begin to participate in the electoral process from party level, that will not necessarily get it right. And that is what this direct primaries will bring to it. It means that as a Nigerian, as much as you belong to a political party and you are a card-carrying member of the party, you have the opportunity and the privilege to exercise your right and also to join those who determine who becomes your party primary. Because what we're having before now was a situation whereby a few persons in a party are being picked or chosen or selected as delegates, who eventually goes to a convention and eventually picks these persons who eventually become party candidates. For instance, now, like in Nigeria, we have two major political parties, even if there are others. And the moment you get it right, the moment these two political parties get it wrong in choosing their candidates, automatically in the general elections, Nigerians will eventually vote in a wrong candidate, because at the end of the day, you actually have no other option than the individuals or candidates that are presented by these two major political parties, which to a very large extent too is equally been monetized seriously, because I've experienced series of cases where people even lobby to be delegates. People lobby to be listed among the delegates. And I've seen situations whereby immediately after the primary elections, those who are chosen as delegates automatically become richer. They automatically become richer. These few individuals automatically become richer at the expense of the majority of the party members and Nigerians at last. So for me, I think it's a welcome development, and I'm not actually very surprised that the governors are finding it very difficult to come to terms with this development. Why is it so? Because these are persons who have been like demigods in their various states. These are persons who determines who becomes the party's electoral candidates in their state, who determines who becomes the party's House of representative candidate in their state. They determine who becomes local government chair. Most times they don't even conduct election for local government election. They just handpick some of their loyalists and make them critical committee chairman. So that makes our governor so powerful. And naturally, nobody wants to actually watch power being taken away from him. So I expect that there will be uproar. I expect there will be sentiments. There will be disagreements, just like they're already doing. They are from the information available to me. They are already lobbying to ensure that the president does not assent to this to this bill. But I believe that at the end of the day, Nigerians will have their way, because whether you like it or not, majority of Nigerians would definitely prefer a direct primaries to an indirect primary. That's my take on that.
Well said, Murphy. But I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that Nigerians will have their way. Meanwhile, it does appear it's the reverse. It does appear that these politicians will always have their way, even with the introduction of direct primaries across board. But I wonder, what are your thoughts as regards this? Don't you think that politicians will indeed always have their way? I mean, they say politics is a dirty game. if we are not going to subscribe to direct primaries, I'm thinking that somehow these politicians will always have a way to maneuver and manipulate. Perhaps you could talk to us about the flaws and weaknesses of direct primaries.
Let's look at obviously the politicians have always had their way in this country most of the time. If you look at the fact that after about 60 years of independence, the country is where it is today, and not something that was wished, by the people, but as a result of the deliberate action of the political elites in the country. So they have always had their way with how they want to run the Nigerian nation, and the people have been at the receiving end all this while. There's no doubt about that. But when it comes to this issue of a direct and indirect primary, sometimes there is this infighting even among intra-fighting, intra-class fighting among members of the political class. I think in a way we saw that at work with regards to the transmission of electronic of results after an election. And perhaps we could say that we do not always lose 100% of the time, because that was the will of the people, which the politicians obviously disagreed with. The very first time it was rejected by the Senate. Then there was a lot of back and forth. Nigerians were angry and they showed their angst on social media and everywhere. And then before you knew it again, the Senate had an opportunity to either stick to that decision. But surprisingly, it was a pleasant surprise that they told the path, the direction that the Nigerian people actually had wished for. So perhaps, again, it's not so bad, even within the chambers of the National Assembly, that once in a while you find a few of them who are willing to do things that would appear to be diametrically opposed to certain interests within the political class. And so with regards to this, again, we have people who also understand what indirect and indirect primaries mean within the political party system. In a way, it favors the big wigs, those with the money within these parties. And that's why, for instance, you said a lot of the governors are kicking against it. Now, these governors also have people representing the states that they govern at the National Assembly. So what that tells you is that there seems to be a divergence of interest between members of National Assembly and then the governors. And so if members of National Assembly, for instance, want to do the right thing, and that would appear to be what is actually going on, then I think it's a win for the people for the Nigerian people. It would also appear that the money bags have not had their way, and I think it is a good thing. So by and large, we are getting it right one way or the other. You look at what happened in Anambra State. That was in Anambra State. And there is nothing anybody can tell me about whether what happened, the outcome of that election was a reflection of the will of the people or not. It was certainly a reflection of the will of the people, in spite of the various, problems we have with the process, such as the beavers and a few other things, and the non-collection of PVC cards and all that. So this is my take on this. The Nigerian people have, it would appear that when it comes to politics and the general welfare, we have been at the receiving end. The general welfare, we have been at the receiving end of the antics of the political class for a very, very long time. But once in a while, we have one or two small, victories here and there.
All right, gentlemen, we'll take a breather in 5 minutes, or let's bring in Kunle in Ibadan, the Yosi capital. Kunle, perhaps talk us through the bimodal verification access device, or accreditation device, rather. Even though Achike says that the elections in Anambra reflect the will of the people, on a larger scale, because it took even the governor-elect, Professor Charles Soludo, about 5 hours before he was able to vote. So on a larger scale, do you think that INEC can deliver with the beavers?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think INEC can deliver with the beaver. What is important is the willpower of those who are in charge in INEC, the willpower of those in authority in doing the right thing that would ensure a free and fair election. These beavers which are used in Nigeria, they are used in other parts of the world, and they work. But first and foremost, I think we start from the basics. What are these? These beavers that are going to work, the personnel to use them, are they properly trained? I think that's the first question we ask ourselves. Now, how do you keep the information on the beavers that it is not tampered with after you must have acquired information onto that system or equipment? Thirdly, how do you process this information that you can get accurate or near accurate results to it? To me, those are the first set of things which INEC should look into. And they should have like a demonstration, which is what goes on in other countries, apart from Nigeria, that I know of. You have a demonstration of how these things are working. You look at people you are going to train. Are they academically qualified to do this? You can't have somebody who does not have a skill set operating the beaver. Those are the kind of things that happened in Anambra State. I wasn't there, but I have friends who were in the administration of Governor Obiano, who was sending me information on what was going on. There are people who are not academically qualified, who can't even operate an Android phone, who are given these beavers to work with. Now, how can they work effectively what they don't understand?
Yes.
So you have got to look at how people are trained.
I hate to,
get people who are
break your flow of
qualified.
thoughts, Kunle Aderemi in Ibadan, your state capital. But gentlemen, we have to take a breather now. When we come back, we'll discuss more on this as we also get to discuss the security situation in the country at the moment. But stay with us. We're back in just a moment. You're watching Firecrackers, and wherever you're watching from around the world, we are live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
This bill is now ready for passage and presidential assent. I'm happy to say that most of what we call citizens' top priorities on the Electoral Act amendment, including the use of technology, has been addressed by this Electoral Act 2021. My distinguished colleagues, on behalf of members of this conference committee, I wish to most sincerely thank His Excellency, the President of the Senate, and His Excellency, the Right Honorable Speaker of the House.
2010 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2021, SB 122, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate, you may lay the report, please.
I will begin to look at the principles of democracy that need to be fine-tuned so as to meet the best practices in other advanced democratic climes, one of which is returning power to the people, where this government of the people, by the people, for the people will be seen operating fully for the benefit of the people. That was why the two chambers accepted that the benefits of direct primaries way outweighs that of indirect primaries. Therefore, we stood clearly and still standing for direct primaries. Secondly, on transmission of results, we have agreed that there is no third-party precondition that ought to be the part of this particular provision of our Electoral Act. Supposed to give approval before transmission could be done electronically. That also has been accepted by the Senate and also accepted by the House. The question will be
You're welcome back. This is Firecrackers, and wherever you're watching from around the world, we're live from our studios here in Lagos, Nigeria. Our focus tonight is on the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which, of course, the National Assembly has passed indeed, waiting for assent by Mr. President. Perhaps let's bring in our discussants and contributors on the program. In Lagos, we have Achike Chudi from the mainland area in Lagos. He's a public affairs analyst. Still here in Lagos as well. Murphy Abadoni is also with us at the moment. He's a political analyst and secretary Network for Promotion of Good Governance. From the ancient city of Ibadan, Kunle Aderemi, CEO Invest Africa Media Limited UK, is also the immediate past General Secretary, National Association of Nigerian Communities in the UK as well. And up north in Yola, the Adamawa State capital, Alhaji Usman Ibrahim Wakali is also with us at the moment, former special advisor to a former governor of that state, Admiral Murtala Nyako, on electoral matters. Gentlemen, thank you so much for standing by, and thank you so much for all your contributions on the program. We'll discuss the security in just a moment. I don't know if we have our guests back so we can continue our conversation with them as soon as possible. I mean, there's so much to unfold as regards this particular topic. Yes, so perhaps we should go to Alhaji Usman. Alhaji Usman, because I should think that you are a member of the All Progressive Congress, talk to us about the possible consequences for your party now that it appears that there's this battle or fight between members of your party and the National Assembly and, of course, sitting governors. I don't know if we do have Alhaji Usman with us. All right, so I'm not sure we have, I think we've lost connection with Alhaji Usman. Gentlemen, Achike Chudi is still with us, here in Lagos, and Kunle Aderemi is still here with us. We have to round off on this topic now, but let me ask you, let me start with you, Achike, maybe very briefly. Do you think that Mr. President will assent to this bill?
In the twilight of his administration, of course, everybody knows that when an administration is winding down, that administration becomes a lame duck. So I think you'll be more concerned about how people view him, how people see him. He was not going to be so much concerned with the politics that is going on around him. And he's not going to put in so much that, I mean, he put in when he had political interest to protect. He no longer has any serious political interest to protect. I'm talking about personal political interest. So it will not be, he will not be as compelled as he was to do certain things that would serve his personal interest rather than public good. He might be more motivated to leave a lasting legacy, and that is to do that which he thinks will put him in good stead in the future, in terms of how people see him, how people perceive him. So from that perspective, he might not really, if he understands what the dynamics that are at stake, he might not be so much swayed by the need to pander to certain political bigwigs within the party. But if he's convinced about why something might, while a particular path might be good for the country, and then put him in a position where people might look at him favorably, then he might not go along with, trying to satiate the interests of a few politicians. Because he has often said that he's more interested about how he's perceived by history's judgment, that the judgment of history is what is motivating him, at least, especially at this particular point in time when he's winding down in his presidency. So I do not see any serious obstacle on his part to signing this bill once it is communicated to him.
Alhaji Usman Ibrahim Wakali back with us. Alhaji, let me take that question to you. Perhaps you can respond to it. Will Mr. President sign the bill? Especially, I understand there are different versions of that bill, even though it has been harmonized at the National Assembly level. But I understand as well some politicking is ongoing on the ground. The governors I'm getting feeders that they intend seeing Mr. President once he's back from Paris in France. But will Mr. President assent to this bill? That's one. On the other side, part two of the question is very simple. You're a member of the APC, I want to think so. this disquiet growing in your party between governors and National Assembly members, even though it's not so pronounced in the PDP, what are the possible consequences for your party heading into 2023 with this kind of disagreement?
I don't think it relates only to the APC. It relates to the two major political parties, because these governors have assumed the total godfatherism of these two political parties, to the extent that they determine who becomes what in the political parties. And I believe, like I said earlier, that this is the only legacy that the present Ninth National Assembly and the presidency will leave behind, a legacy to the Nigerian people, to ensure that the ordinary Nigerians is given the chance to partake in decision making, of making who is going to be what in either the National Assembly or the executive. And I believe, just like one of the House adage that says, people always clamor and pray that they want to go to paradise, but they would rarely consent to the fact that they want to die. So people always clamor for democracy, but they are themselves not democratic in nature. Whenever they are given the opportunity to lead, they truncate the principles of democracy to the extent that they only decide what they personally need, not what the people want. And I believe this does not stop only at the doors of the APC. It goes throughout the two political parties. If you see the wranglings in determining how the national conventions and all the congresses of the parties are made, they are naturally determined by the sitting governors, especially in states where there are incumbent governors, to determine who becomes what in that part in that state, and likewise at the national level. So I believe it is the transparency and sincerity of purpose of the leadership of the party in determining how to go about the implementation of the direct primary provisions as far as this exercise is concerned. Take for instance, I was reading one of the offshoots in the Anambra primaries. They said Soludo during the primaries, Andy Uba during the primaries, he scored over 300 or so thousand votes during the primaries, which was a direct primaries. Unfortunately, in the course of the general election, you could not even score up to 50,000 votes. So it's just unfortunate. Is the roughness and insincerity of the leadership of all the political parties to hijack the system and just do things the way they need, not what actually will translate into a successful transition.
Yeah, so we have to anchor our conversation on that right now, because we are absolutely pressed for time. Gentlemen, thank you.